Chapter 1. Storm. It started to rain. Earl leapt, one foot splashing into a puddle, the other hitting dry ground as he wrestled with the shallop, a small one-masted rowboat he had conveniently borrowed from his master. The tide was low, the sea calm, but Earl, who had spent his whole young life in Bray, knew how fast that could turn. He spotted a sturdy rock and tied the boat tight. Only then did he notice the rain picking up. He muttered a curse, eyed the sky, and weighed the weather before turning toward the cave, the goal of his adventure. Earl moved toward the cave. Jasper and Jane were supposed to come, twins who had known him all his life. Earl had grown up with them. Their mother, Greta, had looked after him when he was small, so the twins were more than friends. They were family. He had waited at the dock for them, but they never showed. It was unusual for them. They were always annoyingly punctual. He couldn't wait any longer, not with his master's boat stolen and the tide in mind. The cave's entrance grew larger as he approached. Soon the walls and ceiling towered over him. They reminded him of the castle walls in the paintings his master used to show him. Earl felt small, tilting his head back to take in the scale of it all. Nature could build wonders no man could match. Waves crashed against the rocks, and water rose close to his boots. He jumped over a small swirling pool and found a narrow path leading deeper inside. As he climbed, he noticed how neatly the path seemed shaped. A closer look showed that some of the rocks had been cut, like brickwork.
Who would build anything out here, and why?
It was clear nature couldn't have shaped this. Still, Earl had no idea who would try to build anything in such a harsh, impossible environment. He reached a platform overlooking the cave's vast opening. In its center stood a structure. No, an altar. It was ancient, yet even for its age it looked grand, almost proud. At its heart rested a large bronze disc. From where he stood, he couldn't make out the design. Earl stepped closer and wiped away centuries-old dust. He noticed that the disc seemed unusually heavy for bronze. The carving revealed a winged serpent coiled upon itself, swallowing its own tail. He was astounded. He had never seen anything like it, not in all his years of studying. No book he had read showed a symbol like this. He opened his bag, pulled out a pencil and his notebook, and searched for a dry patch of rock. Sitting down, he began to sketch the strange design before him. He thought of Master Leicester, a short, stout old man. "The only way to share your findings faithfully," the master had said, "was to sketch them as you saw them." Once he had secured his pencil and paper, Earl walked around the altar, searching for more clues. On the far side, he discovered an opening to the sea, perfectly round, carved clean through the rock. Around the edge, faint markings were etched into the stone. Though time and salt had nearly erased them, he could still make out the words, "Danger arises in the east." As he read, a chill ran through him. Why would some old markings give me chills? Earl believed in what he could see with his own eyes, in what was rational, not in old superstition. Still denying what he had felt, he made his way down from the platform. Earl searched for the same rocks he had used to cross earlier, but most were now swallowed by the tide. He spotted the last one jutting out of the water and leapt for it. This time, he misjudged the distance. His foot slipped on the slick surface, and he hit his head against the rock. The taste of iron filled his mouth as blood trickled from his nose. His thoughts blurred, and darkness closed in. It tasted like salt, he thought. His mouth was full of it. It was hard to breathe, he thought. No, impossible to breathe, he thought. The world lurched back into motion as a wave rolled over him. Earl's eyes flew open. His head was under water. The tide was rising, and the storm was closing in as he lay there, half buried by the sea. His vision blurred at the edges, and a throbbing ache pulsed behind his eyes, making the world tilt slightly as he shook off the daze. He sat up, coughing out mouthfuls of seawater as another wave crashed into him from behind. He fought to stand, his knees trembling, and half walked, half crawled up the rocks to a patch the waves hadn't reached. At least, not yet. Nothing on the island was dry anymore. It had been raining for hours. He leaned against the cliff and took deep breaths. He had learned breathing techniques from Master Leicester for meditation, and he quickly realized they helped him stay focused and calm. They were meant for moments of pressure, to keep the mind clear and the body steady when things got sticky. And this was a sticky situation, he thought. He forced himself to keep his breathing steady a little longer. It must have been past 6 by now. The sun would set within the hour. The rain had turned into a full storm, and the tide was rising fast. He turned his head, searching for Master Leicester's boat. The good news, he found it, and it seemed to be in decent shape, considering the circumstances. The bad news, he would have to swim to reach it. The path was completely submerged, and worse, the rock the boat had been tied to was underwater as well. There was no telling how long the knot would hold. He sighed and weighed his options.
Best case, he somehow reached the boat and managed to paddle it through the storm, against the tide, all the way back to the harbor, and the master would never find out. Or he could stay here, try to find shelter on this little islet, and wait out the night. Maybe, if luck was on his side, the storm wouldn't destroy Master Leicester's boat. As he thought the second option would be better, he found himself doing the opposite. Earl started toward the water, bracing himself to swim for the boat. He was still exhausted from being knocked out, but he told himself he had basically just had a nap. Even though he was already soaked, he gasped as he waded into the dark, restless water. Earl had spent much of his life on the water. Master Leicester's research focused on the ocean and its currents, and because of that, Earl had become a strong swimmer. Half swimming, half floating, he pulled himself up against the rock and reached for the rope. When he thought he had it, he followed it through the water until his hand found the knot. Struggling to keep balanced, he worked it loose. The moment the knot came undone, the current yanked the boat away, almost as if the sea had been waiting for that exact instant. The rope tore through Earl's hands, burning his skin, but he tightened his grip and let go of the rock. Now he was adrift in the open sea, one hand fighting to keep him afloat, the other clinging to the rope that bound him to Master Leicester's boat. The vessel pitched wildly, completely out of control. Earl took a deep breath, gripped the rope with both hands, and dove beneath the surface, climbing hand over hand along the line. He reached the stern, stretched as far as he could, and managed to haul himself aboard. The effort sent a fresh wave of nausea through him, his head pounding from the earlier blow, forcing him to grip the side until the spinning stopped. Still holding onto the rope, he tied it around his body, just in case another wave tried to throw him back into the sea. He lay flat in the boat, catching his breath. His head still spun as the vessel rocked back and forth. Grabbing the paddles, he fought to steer the boat into a better position against the waves. Fortunately, the wind was blowing against the incoming tide, making it possible to push farther out to sea, away from the islet. If only he had a sail, he thought. The way the wind was blowing, he would be back in the harbor within minutes. Earl looked to the sky to gauge the storm's strength. The clouds were black and purple, churning like something alive. The setting sun behind them must have lent the storm its strange colors. Still, he judged, It had to be one of the worst this year, and there had been more of them lately. Old fishermen in Bray used to call such storms once in a decade. Lately, the decade seemed to be getting shorter. The wind whipped the rain straight into his face. He turned toward Bray and steered the boat toward the harbor. Through the haze, he could just make out the city lights. It must not be raining as hard there yet, he thought. The wind was now at his back, giving him much-needed relief. He lifted the oars and used both hands to steer. North of Bray, the coastline was lined with jagged rocks and cliffs, making it impossible to pass. Earl leaned his weight against the rudder, fighting to keep control as the wind pushed him, half toward the safety of the harbor, half toward the deadly cliffs. His hands already burned from the rope, the pain now pulsing as his grip tightened. The rudder creaked under the pressure as the shallop turned more toward Bray. It's working, he thought. The storm was deafening. Earl couldn't hear the rudder's cry as it snapped off the boat. He lost his balance as his full weight leaned against it and stumbled forward, barely catching himself at the last second on the mast. He clung to the mast as if his life depended on it. Earl shouted into the storm, cursing the sea, the wind, and himself. His yells broke into a cry as he saw the wind driving him closer to the rocks. He was terrified. He shouted for help, begged for someone to hear him, but the wind and waves roared too loudly. Even if someone had been nearby, they wouldn't have heard a thing. Out here, he was nothing more than a small dot in the dark sea. Nobody knew where he was, adrift in the storm, without a rudder, carried towards certain death. He cursed his own arrogance. He was in this mess because he had thought he could outwit everyone and everything, even nature itself. He closed his eyes and thought of Jane and Jasper, of what they might say when he never came back. Then he thought of Master Leicester. He thought of how angry they would be if they knew he had put himself in this situation. A violent jolt of the boat made him open his eyes. The shallop was climbing a massive wave, and as it tilted, it spun around. Where there had been only open sea a moment ago, the wave revealed a jagged rock rising from beneath the water. The boat raced down the wave's face, straight toward it. Earl shut his eyes once more. He felt the floor drop away beneath him, his body swallowed by water. He tried to lift his arms to protect his head as the current threw him around, but too late. A wave slammed his head into the same rock the boat had just shattered against. A second time today, Earl lost consciousness.
Chapter 2. Bray. Earl heard children playing. He heard a woman shouting at them to stop running around. He knew that voice. He tried to remember who it belonged to. Then his eyes flew open. He shot upright, and a bolt of pain tore through his skull. He instantly regretted moving so fast. He grabbed his head with both hands and felt a bandage wrapped around his scalp. The room swam before him, a mix of dizziness and sharp stabs at his temple, reminding him of the rock's unforgiving bite. Not once, but twice. Pressing along his head, trying to find the source of the pain, he forced himself to remember what had happened. He had wanted to meet up with the twins, to explore the little island off the coast. They never showed up, so he went by himself.
"Ouch," he muttered when he found the spot on his temple where the pain seemed to come from. Earl noticed that he wasn't in his room. As a member of the guild, he had been given a small chamber in the Baron's fortress. Just a bed, a table, a few shelves for books, and a window. It wasn't much, but it was far more than most people his age had. The windows here were slightly open. Earl pushed himself up enough to peek outside. From the angle and the height he was looking down upon Bray, he realized he must be in the fortress's hospital wing. Then he remembered. Everything came rushing back. The cave, the storm, and Master Leicester's fishing boat. "Oh no," he thought, as the moment the boat sank replayed in his mind. Master Leicester used that boat constantly for his studies. He would kill Earl when he found out he had stolen and destroyed his only seaworthy vessel. Accepting his fate, but still terrified, Earl sighed loudly and tried to get out of the bed. His legs felt incredibly weak. Holding onto the end of the bed, he slowly made his way toward the window. He stopped there for a moment, taking in the bustling town below. Teamsters maneuvered their wagons and carts through Bray's narrow streets. People decorated their houses, and merchants were setting up tents. The town was preparing for the upcoming Midsummer Festival.
It was the largest celebration in the entire kingdom. Every year, all the guilds, except Earl's, chose their new apprentices. The Royal Guild of Advancing Wisdom didn't select apprentices during the festival because their training began much earlier. Students usually joined the guild at around 6 or 7 years old. In Earl's guild, earning the title of master took far longer than it did in any other guild. The guild operated unlike any other. Where the other guilds recognized only apprentices, journeymen, and masters, the Royal Guild of Advancing Wisdom, on the other hand, used a strict hierarchy of 32 ranks. Grandmaster was ranked 26, Master Leicester's rank. Cough. Earl snapped his head back at the sound behind him. "I didn't mean to scare you, Earl. I see you're finally awake. How are you feeling?" Mrs. Lockwood asked, the keep's nurse, a very old and very small woman. "I'm starving, but other than that I feel fine, I think." "What time is it? And what day is it, if you don't mind me asking?" Earl responded. "It's midsummer morning. There will be some fresh beef tea in about 2 hours." Excitement built in Earl. He loved the Midsummer Festival. As he walked toward the door, he thought of the twins and how much fun they must be having already. "Aren't you staying for the beef tea? You really should." "I'm going to the inn. They have food there too," he cut in, slipping past her, already halfway through the doorway. "The inn is closed today," Mrs. Lockwood said. "The Whitmore family is down at the barracks preparing food for the festival." Jasper and Jane's family. Earl froze as the information sank in. "Thanks for letting me know," he said, continuing on his way toward the twins, and some real food. As he stepped out of the keep, Bray opened up before him. So many people, so many unfamiliar faces. Bray was the largest town north of Rivercross, but still small compared to the great cities of the kingdom farther south. After 17 years living here, Earl knew most of its people. But today, everyone in the region was in Bray. He made his way through the busy streets, surrounded by unfamiliar smells and sights. As he walked, he noticed Mr. Kane, his favorite merchant, setting up a tent to showcase and advertise his products. Mr. Kane owned an exotic bookstore on Main Street. Growing up, Earl had spent countless hours there, losing himself in the worlds the books brought to life. The shop also carried a sizable collection of maps, something Master Leicester valued greatly for his work. As Mr. Kane recognized Earl, he waved him over. "I'm glad to see you're feeling better.
Master Leicester told me about your endeavors, Mr. Kane said, sincerity in his voice and worry in his eyes. You have to be more careful, boy. The gods may be on your side, but who knows for how long? I know. It was extremely close this time. I don't even really remember how I made it, Earl admitted. They told me a fisherman found you lying on the beach, Mr. Kane said. At first, they thought you were dead. Luckily, he recognized you as Master Leicester's student and called the guards. Master Leicester also mentioned something about his beloved shallop. Earl swallowed hard at the last part. Well, let's just thank the gods I made it, he said quickly, trying to avoid the topic. You can say that out loud, boy. Now tell me, where were you heading? Looking for the twins. Mrs. Lockwood said the Whitmores were preparing food in the barracks, Earl replied. Ah, yes. They were given permission to use the canteen in the barracks to help with the feast later, Mr. Kane said. Every year the Baron hosts a massive feast, feeds everyone at the festival. He leaned in slightly. The Baron ordered the slaughter of 20 oxen this year, 5 more than last time. Well, it is the year 330 on the guild calendar. A round number midsummer calls for a larger celebration. By tradition, every person in the kingdom aged 1 year on Midsummer Day. At midnight, the calendar year changed too, marking the start of the new year. Seems like the Whitmores have a lot to do. Better I find them, Earl said, to politely get out of the conversation and closer to where there was food. I think they have enough helping hands. You should go find Master Leicester. I don't think he knows you are awake yet. Mr. Kane tried to reason with Earl. I'll go find him soon, Earl lied as he walked past Mr. Kane. Just like Mrs. Lockwood, Mr. Kane watched Earl grow smaller in the distance. The barracks grew larger as Earl approached, and he aimed for the main gate that led into the courtyard. He didn't recognize the soldier standing guard. Must be a new private, Earl figured. Halt! The barracks isn't an attraction. State your business, boy, the private barked as Earl came closer. Boy, Earl repeated to himself. He might look young, but that was no excuse to speak to him like that. Earl was a full member of the guild now. He still followed Master Leicester, yes, but he was no longer an apprentice. After passing the 10th rank, a student was officially recognized as a full member. Not high-ranking, perhaps, but a proper guild member nonetheless. Earl held the 14th rank, 1 step below fellow. And once he reached that level, he wouldn't be allowed to follow Master Leicester anymore. He would be expected to pursue his own research. Part of becoming a fellow was choosing a specific field of study and proving you could contribute something new to it. I have something private to discuss with Commander Barrow, Earl said coolly. But if you'd prefer to explain to him why you refused a message from a guild member, be my guest. He pulled out his guild-issued compass, a polished brass device used as identification, the guild's equivalent of a badge. The private's face went white as he processed what Earl had just said. Sir, I'm sorry. I didn't know you were with the guild. Please don't. Well, Earl cut in, maybe we shouldn't be rude to people we don't know. Sir, yes, sir, I'm sorry. The private stammered and saluted as he moved aside so Earl could pass. Even though the private was older than Earl outranked him by quite a margin. The guild's ranks had official equivalents within the Royal Navy. A journeyman of the 14th rank held the same standing as a first lieutenant. Even the lowest full guild members carried significant military weight. Master Leicester, as a Grand Master, held a rank equivalent to a colonel, technically the highest military authority in Bray. Across the entire Northern Territory, he was outranked only by the Vice Admiral stationed in Kiel, a larger port city on the Serpent Sea, and by the Guild's Magister of Rivercross, the territory's capital. Earl! He heard a familiar woman's voice shout his name. He turned, just in time for a blur of hair and arms to crash into him. "Jane, nice to see you too," he managed as she hugged him even tighter.
We were so worried, she cried. We thought it was our fault. You almost died. If only we had gone with you, we could have stopped you from dying.
"Dying?" Earl cut in. "I'm very much alive, thank you." He paused, then added, "Since you brought it up, where the hell were you two? I waited at the docks. You never showed." "Mom caught us sneaking out and made us stay to help at the inn," said a deeper voice from behind him. "We had no way to tell you. We figured you wouldn't actually go alone." "Jasper," Earl said, grinning as he turned and pulled his adoptive brother into a hug. He had grown up with the twins and considered them both family, his closest friends in the world. But Jane had been different these past few years. She was a little extra warm toward him, always laughing at his jokes, even the bad ones. Earl wasn't sure how he felt about that.
I see,
Earl said. "Well, I did go without you, and I managed to explore the cave." "Did you find anything interesting?" Jasper asked. Before Earl could answer, Jane cut in again. "Earl, you must be starving. Why don't we get you something to eat?" "Great idea. Honestly, that's the main reason I tracked you two down before seeing Master Leicester," he admitted. Jane got up to prepare a plate for him. "Can't you get food at the keep?" "Sure," Earl said, "but I was trying to avoid the Master, because his boat isn't exactly in the best condition." "Oh, right. I didn't even think about the boat," Jane said. "Where is it now? What happened to it?" "Well," Earl sighed, "I'm pretty sure it's on the ocean floor, somewhere near Bray's Cliffs." "Gods, I'm glad this is all on you, Earl," Jasper said with a grin. "Stop it, Jasper. It's hard enough for him already," Jane snapped at her brother. "There you two are. I've been looking all over for you." Mrs. Whitmore's voice cut through their bickering as she marched toward them. "I need your help skinning the potatoes." Then her eyes landed on Earl. "Oh, Earl, I'm so glad you're doing better. We were all worried," she said, her tone softening as she came closer and recognized him fully. Mrs. Whitmore was a hefty woman in her late 40s. Her bright red hair and sharp tone often made her seem harsher than she really was, but her heart was always in the right place. She had adopted Earl when he was around 2 years old, and he had never stopped being grateful to her. He tried to help Mrs. Whitmore whenever he could, especially after her husband, the twins' father, died 5 years ago. "It seems all of Bray knows about me and my shenanigans," Earl said with a sarcastic undertone. "Only the ones that matter," Mrs. Whitmore replied dryly, though she smiled as she said it. "Now excuse Jane and Jasper. They've got work waiting." "I'll be right there, Mom," Jane said, as she handed Earl a bowl of stew and a pint of beer. The food looked and smelled incredible. The stew must have been simmering since yesterday, he thought, as he watched the twins disappear back into the bustle of the barracks. As Earl sat enjoying his stew, he watched the bustle around him. He hadn't been inside the barracks often, maybe a handful of times at most. 2 older privates sat at a nearby table. They were close enough for Earl to notice them, but far enough that he couldn't quite make out their conversation. They kept their voices low, clearly trying not to be overheard. Suddenly, a 3rd soldier joined their table. Earl recognized him immediately, Commander Barrow. Barrow had white hair and a weathered face, with a large scar running diagonally across it, only spared where it crossed his mouth. As the commander sat down and joined the conversation, the other 2 soldiers began speaking a nuance louder, as if his presence gave them more courage. Earl closed his eyes and tried to focus on their conversation. "Got a Royal Falcon in this morning. Message says the Golden Federation's gone belly up. Fragile mess to begin with, but now there's an uprising. Proper bloody one. They even took the Crown Prince's head, Commander Barrow muttered. He lowered his voice even further. All 7 kingdoms have broken off on their own now. Gods help us if they start swinging at each other next.
Did it say what caused it? One of the soldiers asked.
No, Barrow growled. But we've got other whispers. Steppe tribes hitting harder, pushing south like something nasty's at their backs. And it ain't politics doing it. Could be the whole mess is tied together. Maybe, the other soldier muttered. Did the message say anything else? Only word we got is this. Goldfurt's blown wide open in riots. Nasty ones, Barrow went on gruffly. Cities split clean down the river now. Eisenthrat on one side, Brantgard on t'other. And listen close. They butchered anyone tied to the Guild or the Kingdom of the Isles. Most of our merchants are dead. Rest ran for their lives. So we currently have limited insight on what's happening there? One of the soldiers asked. I don't think the Guild or our king will tolerate this, the soldier muttered. Let's hope they don't declare war on what's left of the Federation. Earl held his breath. They killed everyone from the Guild? Why would they do something like this? How terrible. The Guild is just there to help them progress and keep peace, he thought to himself. Strong hate built up in Earl as he digested the information. He gasped a little too loud, and Commander Barrow turned around at the noise and locked eyes with Earl immediately. "Earl!" he barked, loud enough that the other soldiers stopped talking. "Hope you haven't been eavesdropping long. This ain't talk meant for civilians." "Good thing I'm not a civilian," Earl responded sharply. "True, and that reminds me. I was just talking to Master Leicester half an hour ago. He was under the impression you were still resting in the keep." He roused an eyebrow. "I was just getting—" Earl scrambled for an excuse. Before he could finish, a 4th soldier appeared, cutting him off. "Sir, Commander Barrow," the soldier said, saluting quickly. "I've been instructed to inform you that there are reports of an unknown shipwreck on the beach." Earl watched Commander Barrow's scar twitch as his expression tightened. "Unknown? What in the bloody hell's that meant to be?" Barrow growled. I don't know, sir," the soldier stammered. "The ship is strange, sir. I haven't seen anything like it." "No flag? Nothing at all to mark 'em?" Barrow snapped. "No, sir. But, there were corpses." The soldier swallowed hard. "We didn't get closer to investigate. We thought you'd want to see it firsthand, sir. We've evacuated the area. No civilians can approach the shipwreck."
Commander Barrow stood silent for a moment, studying the messenger from head to toe. "You move. Go fetch Master Leicester, now," he barked at one of the soldiers. He pointed at the second. "And you, off to the Baron. He'll want word of this straight away." Then his gaze moved between the newly arrived soldier and Earl, back and forth. "You two, with me. We're going to see this wreck ourselves." Before Earl even realized what was happening, he was already on his feet and heading out of the barracks. Curiosity churned inside him. A mysterious shipwreck? He couldn't help wondering what Master Leicester would say about it. Then the thought of his master brought back the memory of the boat. His stomach twisted. "How ironic," he thought. "Yesterday I wrecked his boat, and today we're going to look at someone else's." It was late in the afternoon. Earl judged it to be about 3 hours past noon.
The sun had long passed its zenith, its late summer warmth settling across his back as he waited on horseback with the others. Mounting the horse had set a sharp reminder through his skull. The lingering concussion made every trot feel like the ghosts of yesterday's stupidity tapping on the inside of his head. They had been waiting at the city gates for a while.
I can see the master coming,
Earl said, pointing down the road. Commander Barrow and the other soldier, Thomas, as Earl had learned in the meantime, turned to look.
"About damn time," the commander muttered. "Old man moves like he's wading through mud some days."
Earl couldn't help but giggle. He would never call Master Leicester an old geezer, but he couldn't deny the truth in it. The master was always late. "Commander," Earl heard his master say as he finally rode within reach.
"Master?"
Commander Barrow replied gruffly, giving a sharp salute. Technically, Master Leicester outranked Barrow by a considerable margin. A guild Grand Master held a military equivalent rank of colonel. But in practice, Barrow was the second highest authority in Bray after the Baron himself. He commanded the Baron's entire army, whereas Master Leicester's role was more advisory, guiding the Baron, offering counsel, and conducting research for the guild. As they rode down the path toward the beach where the alleged shipwreck had been found, Master Leicester broke the silence.
"I'm glad to see you're feeling better."
After a short pause, he added,
"They found you half dead, washed up on the shore. You're extremely lucky one of the guards recognized you. Otherwise, they might have left you there to die."
What in the name of the king were you doing in the ocean during that storm?
The comment stung, especially coming from a man whose entire research revolved around the sea and its currents. Earl should have known better, and they both knew it.
The twins and I were going to explore the cave on the small island across the harbor, he stammered.
"You mean the one with the ancient temple inside?" Master Leicester replied, perfectly dry, his expression unchanged.
"Wait, you knew about the temple?"
Earl's voice fell flat with defeat.
"Why did I even bother going? Why didn't you tell me?"
"You never asked," Master Leicester said, somehow even drier than before. He maneuvered his horse closer until their legs nearly touched. Leaning in, he added sharply,
"Oh, and you will be buying me a new boat, and I already know exactly which one I want."
With a grim grin, he straightened again and continued in a lighter tone.
"Now then, tell me what you learned from this little adventure of yours, the one that nearly cost you your life and my boat."
Earl reached into his bag and handed over his notebook.
"I made sketches of what I saw. It all seemed very old, older than our kingdom, I think. But I don't know who built it. Upstairs, there was an altar with a symbol of a large snake eating its own tail."
He spoke almost like he was giving a presentation.
"Very good," the master said. "What else? What do you think the symbol could mean?"
"No idea,"
Earl admitted honestly. He thought for a moment.
Maybe the snake eating itself stands for a cycle? Something renewing itself? Could it represent a year and its seasons?"
"Very good," Master Leicester repeated.
"Ah, look, it seems we're getting closer."
He pointed toward a crowd of bystanders gathered around something on the beach.
"Hold!"
Commander Barrow barked. The small group dismounted and tied their horses to the nearest tree before heading down toward the wreck. A guard broke away from the scene and ran up to them, straightening into a salute the moment he recognized the commander.
"Sir!"
"At ease. Now speak. What have we got?" Barrow snapped.
"Sir, an unknown ship washed ashore. We counted 7 corpses and 1 survivor," the soldier replied briskly.
He hesitated for a breath, then added,
"And, sir, by the way she came in, the wreck must have drifted down from the north. Nothing comes from that way, not along this stretch of coast. The currents and winds don't allow it."
"A survivor?" Master Leicester cut in before the commander could.
Yes, Master Leicester. I apologize. I didn't recognize you at first.
The guard saluted again, flustered, then continued.
The survivor appears to be a young woman. She has unusual features.
Strange how, Barrow muttered. What, is she ugly?
No, sir. On the contrary.
The guard's expression shifted as he glanced toward Earl.
I've just never seen anyone with skin that dark.
Earl stiffened at the guard's words. He knew he looked different. Darker skin, bright blue eyes, different from anyone else in Bray. But he was rarely reminded of it so directly. This was one of those moments, and he wasn't sure he liked how it felt. Commander Barrow didn't seem to notice Earl's discomfort. Earl, Thomas, go check the wreck, he ordered. Master, you and I will see the girl. Maybe she can give us some answers. As Earl and Thomas started toward the wreck, he could still hear Barrow questioning the guard behind them. Has anyone tried speaking to her yet? The guard's reply was already fading as Earl and Thomas moved farther down the beach toward the shipwreck looming ahead. It wasn't particularly large, Earl thought, but it was long. Very long. Along both sides, he could see evenly spaced openings, places where oars must have once been, and in the center stood the shattered stump of what used to be a mast.
Have you ever seen anything like this?
Earl asked.
No, never, Thomas replied. Not even during my years at sea. It doesn't look very seaworthy if you ask me, Earl added.
Clearly, it sank, Thomas said with a dry grin.
That's not what I meant.
Earl stepped closer to the wreck, studying its shape.
This boat doesn't look like it was built for the open ocean. The hull is too flat. It would have tipped over at the slightest hint of bad weather.
Thomas gave him a puzzled look.
If I had to guess, Earl continued, this wasn't meant for high seas at all. More like rivers or lakes. It's big enough to carry 24 people. Maybe it was used as a ferry?
I doubt that, Thomas said. The villagers found a bunch of cargo scattered across the beach.
Do we know what they found?
Earl asked. Thomas shrugged his shoulders, then nodded in the direction the commander and Master Leicester had gone. Maybe. Let's find out. I'm also curious about this young woman they found, he said with a smirk. Aren't you even a little curious? Earl met Thomas's eyes.
Yes, curious, he said slowly, but for different reasons.
He began walking in the direction Thomas had indicated.
He was curious, so curious he had to force himself not to walk too quickly. He wanted to see what the woman looked like, to see if she looked like him. He had always wondered where he came from. Everyone he knew in Bray wasn't just light-skinned. They were pale, almost gray from the constant bad weather. Naturally, meeting the first person he had ever seen with darker skin stirred something inside him. Something he didn't quite understand. Yet. As the two young men drew closer, they saw the two older men standing with several guards in a loose circle. We need to send a raven and inform the Duke of Rivercross, Earl heard someone say as they came within earshot. A soft voice, but urgent. Earl, Master Leicester called sharply, striding toward him. Earl, I need to tell you something, he said, slightly out of breath. Earl's stomach tightened. What is it, Master?
The girl who washed up on our shore. How do I put this? The Master stumbled over his words. Earl frowned.
What's going on?
Master Leicester exhaled. She looks like you.
Like a twin?
Earl asked, confused.
No, not like that.
Leicester rubbed his forehead.
I mean, she looks like your people. Same tone of skin, same blue eyes, high cheekbones. She could be from wherever your family came from. Did she say anything? Did she say where she's from?
Earl asked, his voice tighter than he intended.
Master Leicester raised a hand, trying to steady him. The girl is unconscious, but she's breathing well and her heartbeat is strong. I'm certain she'll be fine after a bit of rest. Understood, Earl said, trying to regain his composure while nodding. I want to see her. Maybe I can find some clues, Earl said, and hurried toward the rest of the group at a quick pace. Wait for me, Master Leicester called after him. Earl reached the circle of guards and saw her lying in the sand. She had darker skin, just like him, just as Master Leicester had said. No, her skin seemed even darker. It was hard to tell with the way she lay half covered by sand, but she seemed tall for a woman. Her clothing was unlike anything Earl had ever seen. Rough, primitive. She wore simple animal furs stitched into crude garments, more like the hide-wrapped clothing of a wild hunter than anything from the kingdom. The coat she wore appeared to be made from white fur. A bear, Earl guessed. He remembered reading about a rare condition in one of his books, something that drained all pigment from an animal's skin and fur. Albino, he thought. It was the only explanation that made sense to him. Earl scanned her surroundings for more clues, then stepped toward the guards. How long have you been here? How long has she been watched? He asked. The highest-ranking guard answered, We've been here about an hour, sir. He must have recognized Earl as Master Leicester's student, because he straightened and gave a salute as he spoke. We're uncertain how long the villagers knew about her before we arrived, he finished. Before Earl could ask more, he heard Commander Barrow behind him. Right then, two of you, lift her. Get her back to the keep. Mrs. Lockwood'll sort her out. At once, the two guards Barrow had addressed stepped forward and lifted the girl by her legs and shoulders. The group moved back toward the horses. As they rode toward the keep, Master Leicester glanced over at Earl. Did you find anything interesting at the shipwreck? The ship seemed unusually long, Earl began, but it didn't look seaworthy. The hull was flat, almost like an oversized gondola, like the ones they use in Rivercross. It appears you're not wrong about its seaworthiness, Master Leicester said with a short laugh. Earl replied dryly, Thomas made the same joke. You two think alike. Leicester's laugh died on the spot. He muttered into his beard, No need to insult me. Earl pushed on. Speaking of Thomas, he said the villagers found a lot of cargo and supplies. With a crew of only 8, that fits. But what I don't get is why anyone would cross the open ocean in something like that. Maybe they were merchants? The master said nothing for a long moment. His gaze drifted past Earl, toward the gray line of the sea, as if picturing the wreck for himself. Unlikely, he said at last. They only found children and women washed ashore. And with what you've told me now, it suggests something far worse. My guess is they were trying to flee from something, or someone. A cold knot tightened in Earl's stomach. He swallowed, drew a deep breath, and said, It does look that way. The question is, from whom? He hesitated before continuing. Master, why didn't you go look at the wreck yourself? You left it to me and Thomas to report back. Aren't you curious? That's exactly where I'm going, Master Leicester replied promptly. Right after I deliver the girl to the keep. I need to be certain she's exactly where I left her when I return. Both men rode in silence after that, each lost in his own thoughts. The steady clatter of hooves filled the space between them, but neither felt inclined to break the quiet. By the time the town came into view, the sun was already sinking behind the rooftops, painting the sky in deep gold. The festival was in full swing, flickering lights, merchants shouting over one another, bursts of laughter, and the murmur of 100 conversations drifting on the wind. Earl could make out the noise even before they reached the outskirts. As their party approached the gate, they found a long line of people still trying to get into Bray. Barrow rode ahead, bypassing the crowd entirely, dozens who must have been waiting for quite some time. The guards at the gate raised their hands, halting the civilians and opening a clear path so Barrow's group could pass through without slowing. A few of the townsfolk grumbled openly as the horses pushed past. "Been standing here near an hour," a man muttered. "Rank or not, it's still jumping the line."